Welcome. In this iteration of our Duck Hunt game, we're going to add in images and fonts so that we can customize the look and feel of our project a little bit easier than drawing simple circles, rectangles, triangles, lines, quads, etc. So we're going to make something that looks like this. So you can see how we're now using a specific font. So I have a 8-bit style font with it. I can click and now I can change the images. Oh, I think I'm going to lose. Oh, I won. All right, time to serve the demon duck. So we can see we probably need to change some text color going on there. The buttons, I went and changed what's in that, so we'll have to do some customization on that. We can see though, if we lose the game, watch the ducks all just kind of fly by. We can now see we lose. We're going to have to modify where that text appears with these particular backgrounds because the white on white's just not really doing anything. Now you'll notice we even have it set up so that the duck, it's disappearing as it falls into the front. So I'm actually using two versions of the front graphic, one that is full, one that is partial. So we've got a couple of different things going on here. So if we build upon, in the last two videos, one we looked at how to add fonts, one we looked at how to add images. Now this is where we bring it all together and we will then build out our different images. So we have the font file, then I have my duck files that I'm working with there. We can see that I have my game background. I have a section of it that's been cut out, so I just trimmed a layer in Photoshop with it so that the ducks can fall behind that. So I draw the main background, I draw the ducks, and then I draw this background behind. Then we can see we have these other background graphics that we're working with here. So setting those up in Photoshop, one of the key things that does matter is we ideally want our artwork to be at the size that we're working with it inside our project, so that because our project is 800 by 600, when I'm working with my graphics, such as the start screen image, as the demon ducks from hell, if we look at the image size, we will see that it is 800 pixels by 600 pixels, 72 pixels per inch. So I have it set at the size I want it. You should never have your images thousands by thousands and then scale them down with code, because that's just wasting memory and impeding the performance of your game. So you don't want that to happen. You can scale things up. There is even a school of thought where you start with your graphics small and then you scale them to double size, and then that gives you fun pixelization when you're working with it, especially when you're doing a retro style game. So that can be a way of working with it, and all of your graphic files that you're working with are that much smaller. So a lot of the graphics were just modified using Photoshop. So I downloaded high-res files. I scaled them down to 1/4 size. So they were 200 by 150 pixels. And then I scaled them back up, changing it to nearest neighbor instead of automatic, because then that allows me to get the pixelization, so it gives it a little bit more retro styling as part of it. I also used a website called Piskel App. They have a downloadable version for Windows if you want to work on that as well. And within this, it is a great tool for doing sprite animation. So we'll be looking at how we can leverage this to create sprite animations down the road. But right now, it's a really fun way to build things out. So I'll put a link to a video on how to use it in the description so you can get more details if you are so inclined. So with all of that out of the way, let's start coding. So first we're going to add in the font so that our text changes, because if I run our project, we'll see that it's just in the standard default text. So let's update that part first. So I need a pfont variable. So I'll just set mine as 8-bit font, matching the name on it. Now when we look here, we need to make sure that when we load that font, so let's go down into the end of my setup here. I'll just put a line here, loading assets. So with this 8-bit font is equal to create font And now we need to reference that name in our data folder. So 8-bit-madness, and this is case sensitive. So we do have to make sure we're getting it correct. And it's a TTF file, so .ttf. And then I can just list a generic size that I want it to be. So that loads the font. And now if I know that I'm just going to use this font for all of the text in my whole project, at this point, I can just set my text font information. So I can say text font. Now, if we had multiple fonts and loaded multiple fonts, we could then use the text font command at the points in our code where we want to display our text with a different font. And if I was doing that, I'd probably use a shorter name than the whole 8-bit font because that is a lot to type. So now if we rerun this and we can see that the text has been updated, we can see the score, timer, both of those are updated. So then that's working out okay. So I did notice when I hit play, we get some weird stuff because as I was finishing out the lecture, last time we had it in a variety of different things, such as, getting some random movements going on and other stuff. So I'm going to just get rid of that stuff. And instead, we'll just go back to the standard arcing information here. So let's go get these back into a decent amount. So right now I want my ducks to launch upward to be affected by gravity, but only to be affected by gravity. Well, actually, let's see, where do I? Okay. Well, this is giving me double gravity because I'm adding it, so I don't need this one down here. Let's just delete that. So again, mine is going for just an arc here, so now we have that arc. Okay. Oh, I do need to then go and modify it under the reset, because when they are hitting the edge, we don't want the VY to go to 0, but now we want to actually just call reset. So when they go off screen, so they've gone off the edge here, so where X is less than 0, they've moved all the way across. Then we just call reset, so that resets them. And then we can just give it back, -6 is part of that reset there. So now let's try and run this again and see, watch the duck. So it goes across. So they're all just kind of following this looping arcing pattern. All right, so that's giving me what I want for my duck hunt game here. All right, so text has been updated. I've used the font. That was pretty straightforward to use. And now what we have to do is we have to add in all of the images here. So this is where we need to add in a bunch of images. And again, if I look here so I can see my different image files, I have my win background, start background, lose background, my two backgrounds for the game, one that sits up front, one that's the whole background. And then I have my two versions of my duck. So we need to create our pimage variable for all of those. So I'm going to preface all of these with the word art, so I know that this variable is referencing that art. I mean, I could use image, but the word art is less to type. So I'll say art duck and art duck hit. Now we'll move on to the next. Now I could put out all of them on one line, but it does start to get a little bit long as we work with this. So I'm going to break this into a few lines. And I will do my backgrounds. I'll put BG in it so I always know that's what I'm referring to. And now we have our start, BG, art win bg, and finally my art underscore lose bg. So now that we have set those variables, now what I need to do is populate those variables with it. So I have to remember what I named them down here. So now we have art underscore duck is equal to load image. And now we specify the image that we are loading. And I can look at my file list like that and go art underscore duck hit equals load image duck hit dot png. So now that has loaded. So we'll load the backgrounds in a moment. First, what I want to do is verify that this is indeed working here. Now, a couple things about this. If I look at my duck image here and get information on this, we can see it's 64 by 64. But if I look at the enemy, the enemy is 48 by 48. But that's okay, because when we draw this duck image, what we'll realize is a lot of it's got little thin parts that stick out, and we want to make that hit area, the active part that we're aiming for, centered within it and a little bit smaller than the total dimensions of this pixel, of the pixels of that image. So if we go in Photoshop here, I'll go grab my elliptical marquee tool and we will set it to a fixed size, and I will set this to 48. And now if I click on screen, we can see, so it's now giving me a fixed size here. Now, if you're astute, you'll realize that that fixed size is not actually the right size, because I forgot that this particular one that I opened up was made at 96, not at 64. So let's shrink this down to 64. And now when I draw that circle, we can see how that lines up a little bit better. So if I were to take and fill the circle, we can see how that encompasses the majority of the duck, but not all of it. So the feet, the tips of the wings, tail, and head stick out from that circle. But that circle is the majority of the duck, and that's really what we want to have happen as we work with it. So let's go in and continue working with this and modifying the enemy. So in the enemy class, if we just go into our update, we have two ducks to look at. I'm going to leave this circle information here so we'll see how it lines up, but then we will modify that. So we have two versions of the duck when we're hit and the duck when we're not. So I can just simply say if hit is true, then this is where we will use our image command. So remembering, we just specify the image we want to see and the location of where we want to see that image. And with this, I can just do art underscore duck hit. Capitalization matters, spaces matter, etc. Now, where do I want to draw it? I want to draw it at, I don't want to draw it at, images draw from the top left corner, not the center like a circle. So we need to move it over, because if we draw this duck at x, y, and then we set the size. Now if we want to, I can just type in 64 and 64 like that, and then do ending curly brace and do else, curly brace, return twice, close curly, and if for my comment. And now I am going to copy paste this, copy, paste, and we will change this from duck hit just to duck. So if the duck hit is true, we draw the hit one, otherwise we draw the normal one. All right, so again, x, y, width, and height, that's where we're drawing it. And now let's run this and see what we get. So when I run this, we'll see that, see how the duck is not centered. So if I click on the duck, it doesn't do anything. So we need to offset where we're drawing it, and we offset it by half of the size of the image. knowing that we're making it match the circle that it draws around its middle. So let's just take a look at that and see how that runs. You will notice as we're doing this, we're only doing a piece at a time to make sure that what we're doing, hey, look at, and now it lines up. Now that we have that working, maybe I want to, I can turn that circle off behind it now that we know what is the hitbox area that we're checking on. And yeah, that works a whole lot better. So with that, our enemy has been updated. Now we just need to throw in the backgrounds, update some more text, change some colors around. We might want to change the player and change what we draw for that. Maybe I want a crosshair. Reds, well, probably not a red circle since there's a lot of red in the background. So maybe I want this to be green instead. And we will stroke this at, I'll do a darker green, so let's copy that. Let's see what it looks like now. That's better. I mean, maybe I want to do a crosshairs on whatever. It's your project. You decide what the player is going to look like. You could even have an image for your player. So I could be moving an image around instead of just drawing it with code. Totally up to you on how you want to solve that. All right. So we've loaded a few images. Now we need to load the rest of the background images. So this is really just rinse and repeat. So art underscore start bg is equal to load image quote. And now let's just look over here. It is start underscore background .png, just like that. Now I am going to copy and paste this a few times here because we have the start background, we have the game background, we have the game front, and then this is game front. Let's make sure that is indeed what I called it. Game front BG, game front BG, okay, and then we have our win. And finally our lose. Now that we have those backgrounds created, now we can simply draw them. We don't need to draw anything in our main draw. After this background command right here, we can just go image. Using the image command, which image? We want to see our start, our art underscore start BG, and we draw it at 0, 0 because remember we made these images the exact same size as our project. So when it loads, boom, there it is. Now you can see we need to update some text, put some instruction text, welcome text, etc. on this front page. So we'll take care of that after we get the rest of the images into our game here. So now the game does require me to do 2 because I do the main image, and this is art underscore game BG 0, 0. And then at the very end of the draw loop, now, if I had UI stuff showing up across the bottom, maybe I wouldn't do it at the bottom, but because I don't, we will just go image, and it's art underscore game front BG 0, 0. And then we go on to our win screen, image art underscore win BG 0, 0. And finally our lose state here, image art underscore lose BG 0, 0. So as you can see, it really was just a rinse and repeat as part of it. And now we get our state 3. Hey, look, we won. And now we get that. Again, we need to change some text, probably change our button code a little bit. Maybe we want to customize the button color based on the screen it's showing up on, as well as maybe move it to a new location so it's not contrasting. And I'm going to just let this run out and lose. Boom. Now we can see again, it's hard to see what's there, hard to see what's on the button. So these are things that we want to tackle next. So going up into our start function up here, let's now put our text on screen. So I'm going to just set my fill color to white. So all F's is white, otherwise I could use 255, that would work as well. Now we do a text align. It's always a good idea to reference your alignment and size and color every time you display text on screen to make sure that it is going to have a predictable result and be what you intend. So set that to 36, and now we will just use our text statement here. And I'll say shoot the daemon docs before time runs out. And we'll center it on screen here. And I'm just going to guess at a number, and let's say 150. Let's see what this looks like when we put it on screen and run it. And see, there it is. Okay, see, that's really long line length. What would be really nice is if we could break this into 2 lines. And turns out we can. We can do it quite easily. And what we do is we use, it's either it's the angled slash, it's the one right above the return key on your keyboard. You can see, so it's not the one next to the shift key, it's the one above the return key. So I don't know, is that a forward slash or backslash? No one really knows. I think it's forward because we refer to the other one as backslash on web addresses, but we use N. So we're saying let's put in a line return right here. So I don't want that space there because that will actually count as a space. So we just do /n, and now if we run this, you'll see how I now have 2 lines of text. So I want to get my spacing for my text to look more like that, because currently it looks like this. So what we can do is we can adjust the leading or line spacing. And we do that by just going text leading. And we put in a number. So now if I put in a number like 36 and our text size is 36, let's see what we get. Okay, it's not good or bad. Each line of text is that. I mean, if we do leading of 0, see what happens. So we can see now they're on top of each other. So 36 isn't too bad. I want to space it out a little bit more. Let's try 42. I want a little more gap in there, and I like that. It's not too bad. I can work with that for now. All right, so shoot the daemon docs before time runs out. I am going to just bump this down a little bit more, 160. Just trying to get it to look a little more how I want it to look. Now the button here, click to play. All of the buttons, when we look at the buttons, let's just let this run out. 2, 1, boom. We can see again, that purple, that's really hard to read there. And now 1, 2, 3. And on a went again, that purple's hard to read, but white text is proving in this particular project, because all the backgrounds are so dark, to be easier to read. So I want to modify that here. So when we look at the color that we're filling with, we're setting that in our state. So now if I change this and just go all F's, now let's see what it looks like there. Oh, no, that's the main color I wanted to. I do want to change the main color as well, because I'm not loving that purple right now. Let's run this and see. Okay, that looks a little bit better. 1, 2, 3. And again, now we're going to change the text up, make our messaging fit with our game concept a little bit more, but at least that's giving us a better idea of what we want our text to look like. Now if I go back up into my main code here, where we have our 4 buttons, we're not actually using this button anymore because we don't have a button in the game itself. We just have our click to play. And now when we win, because I'm showing that you've shot down the duck, so you get to have a nice demon duck dinner. I'm going to say still hungry. And then if we've lost the game, maybe next time you will hit something. Now again, if I want this to be on 2 lines, we can just go /n, just like that. Now let's take a look and see how that works. Click to play, good. Let's lose and see how that looks, because it's still hungry. I think we know how that's going to look. And okay, that works, but I think for the button, then what we want to set up on the button with our text is go text letting, and I'll just put in 24. Let's run that again. Let time run out. We can see our score and time probably need to be adjusted as well. And then maybe next time you'll hit something. Yeah, I can live with that. I think I'm going to bump it up though and just say 30. I want a little more space there on it. Now let's see, you are a loser. Yeah, that's really not working on that. We need to change it. Now if I change it to white, then we're going to have to move it up into the dark, or at least up onto the blue, so we have to pull it up from where it is. So let's jump over to our main code here and look at lose, move into the text here, and for now I'm just going to set it to white, and we need to go up, and let's just go to say 110, not 1100 there. Whoop. Didn't mean to hit that, and then change this, and I will say somebody is going hungry tonight. And then when we win, we'll just change that message. Time to eat the demon ducks. Not my choice of a meal, but hey, whatever works for you. And I'm guessing we'll just put white text there as well, because the white is seeming to work a little bit better. We need to fix those score in our lives. Let's see what happens when we lose. And now we can read the text because it's no longer on the white. It's right there. We can play again. 1, 2, 3. Time to eat the demon ducks. That works. I kind of want it a little closer to the button. So with that, let's pull that down a little bit. I'll just drop it down and say 170, so we pull it down 20 pixels. So that's going to work there on it. So let's just go back into the game here and take a look at that. The timer and the score information. The score is being drawn at 50. The time is being drawn at 100. So I ideally want those to be at the same number so they're in a line so it looks a little bit better. And I will just set the color for both of these to white. And because there's no other call in between, technically I only need the first one, and then that can work, but that's perfect. They both are sitting now on the black text. And now we get to carve up our demon ducks. You can see how we got the person with the carving fork and knife here, cutting into it at a nice candlelit dinner. And if we fail 1, got a score of 1, time runs out, we're still hungry. All right, so that purple button, I kind of want it to be a different color. Now let's see, what can I get away with? I think I'm going to go for kind of a reddish orange instead. So we'll go and grab something that's more in that line right there. So if we look at the button with it, we'll go change our upstate. Whoop, wrong. Key command. Get in the right window here and now try and paste. There we go. when I first hit paste, I hit Command F instead of V, and then popped in a different window, and then I clicked and things were all messed up. All right, I can live with that better. Let's see how that looks on the win. That's better. The green outline on the button, I think we'll have to change. It's getting that stroke from it because the button itself doesn't have a stroke color, so it's getting the stroke inherited. When we click here, it's inheriting that stroke of green. So I'm going to just try, let's choose this kind of yellowish orange color. We'll copy that. Let's go into the player here. Not the player, sorry. Go into the button. It's just verifying that in the player we had a stroke. Go back into our button here, and we will just set our stroke color on it. Stroke. Paste that color in, and now let's see what happens. That's better, much better. Okay. So we have images loading, we're clicking, we're scoring. All of our functionality was there before. Notice how the ducks disappear. If I hit them over the background, you can see how they're falling. And the player itself, if I look here, you can see how it disappears because I'm drawing the player before I draw this final the front background. If you don't want that, then you just need to modify on it so that you draw the player after you draw that extra background piece. So you could just move this up so that P display happens after that. So if that's what you want, that is something that you could do in your project. But otherwise, you have images, you have fonts, you can customize it. For that matter, you don't even need to draw. I mean, technically, buttons don't even really need artwork. You could draw and you wouldn't have the rollover effect, maybe just on the text, but the button artwork itself could be fixed, and you could set up that button artwork in Photoshop where you make your background graphics. So again, the sky's the limit. Have fun, be creative, try things, see what happens. Just remember, your image files need to be in your data folder. They need to be sized correctly for you to use them. When you load images, you create a pimage variable reference. Then you use the load image command, and it must occur inside your setup. Do not use load image inside something that is running or looping every frame, because you will crash your program. It will run out of memory and choke. Because once you've loaded the image, it's in memory, and then you can use it as many times as you want. So good luck and have fun coding.